So this video is going to be looking at analytical paragraphs, some tricks and some things to remember when you are constructing them. So the first thing that we need to look at is key elements of an analytical paragraph. Okay, so when we are constructing paragraphs, so body paragraphs of an essay, we're looking at conceptual topic sentences, rubric understanding, references to the question, textual evidence, named techniques, evaluative language, integrated evidence, language deconstruction, and sophisticated language choices. I'm going to go through some of those, but as a simple guide, these are the things that you are expected to have as part of your analysis. If you have them, it means you are constructing a paragraph with at least some level of skill. And the more you practice them and the more you use feedback to improve them means that the level of skill that you're presenting should increase. So we're going to start with topic sentences. So the first thing you need to understand is you need to build your topic sentence from your thesis. So your thesis is your understanding of, not odd, that's good to do some editing occasionally. Your thesis is your understanding of your module or elective. It's your summary of what does this mean. So for the examples that I'm using, we're looking at distinctive voices. So experience through language is the module, distinctive voices being the elective. Your topic sentence is how you know this statement is true. And so you need to make sure that your topic sentence is always building on or is connected to your thesis, because it is how you are proving that your thesis is a correct answer to the question. So for example, if my thesis for distinctive voices is, distinctive voices are so because they have the ability to transcend context and forge a connection with their audience, I would have a topic sentence along the lines of, Suzuki uses her voice to force her audience to reflect on their role as leaders and parents. Now, how this connects is we're talking about Suzuki, we're talking about how she uses her context to connect and forge this connection to her audience in their specific context. She's using her voice to appeal to their understanding, to appeal to their background, and to appeal to their own experiences. So you see the topic sentence lends itself to supporting what my overall idea in the thesis is. And so each topic sentence should be really clearly showing how the text you've chosen is supporting your understanding and is supporting the thesis that you've laid out at the very beginning of your response. When it's time to use your evidence to support this, there's three things we need to remember. You need to talk about whole text, sentence level, and word level. When we're talking about whole text, we're talking about purpose and audience. So if we go to this topic sentence, and I'm talking about purpose and audience, I would actually talk about the intention of making the audience feel guilty and talk about the conceptual idea of her being a child and them being adults or parents. And then to support this whole text understanding, we take it to sentence level, where we use particular phrases and techniques to reinforce that this is what she's trying to do. We additionally reinforce that understanding with word level, and this is where we look at implication, connotation, and the choice of modality. These three pieces of evidence need to work together, and you actually need to have all three in a paragraph. You need to talk about what the purpose for the audience is, purpose of the text, purpose for the audience, who the audience is, and how the composer has addressed their audience. Then you need to look at the ways specific in language that is done, that purpose is achieved. And then we look at how that purpose is reinforced because of word choice. For example, we could go with the direct address and inclusive language, the idea of we versus you. We are your children. You don't know how to fix it. You do what you tell us not to. Okay, so each of these pieces of evidence actually build on each other and support that broader understanding that I talked about before. Your evidence needs to you need to make sure that your evidence is really clear and it is supporting the statement that you have made in your topic sentence so that it is supporting your thesis. Everything comes back to that analysis because you need to make sure that you are writing in a skilled, cohesive way. And the way you do that is making sure that all of your arguments have some connection to your thesis and all of your evidence support the statement that you have made at the beginning of the paragraph. You need to make sure that your evidence is integrated. It should not read like a checklist. So when you are talking about, when you're talking about your evidence, you can't make it seem like, now I'm talking about whole text, now I'm talking about sentence level, now I'm talking about word level. Really, you should be talking about them all together. The idea of we understand the whole text level because of the sentence level, which we then further understand because of the word level. And the last thing that I'm going to talk to you about is actually your language. You need to show a sophistication in your word choice. It is not okay to say shows or writer. You could say displayed, you could say illuminated, you could say author, you could say composer instead. The higher the modality, the deeper the implied analysis is. When we say that your interpretation needs to be deeper or your analysis needs to be more sophisticated, sometimes it is actually just the language choice, because words that have an implied evaluative meaning actually show a greater skill than if you're over-explaining a point. Because sometimes when you try to over-explain, you actually do the opposite and show that you don't have control of language. So for example, instead of saying Suzuki tells her audience there needs to be a change, you would say Suzuki uses her language to create an imperative. Instead of tell her audience, create an imperative. That higher modality language shows a value judgment on the actual speech and on the actual composition. Create an imperative for change for her audience. Okay, so that language that I use for too many times. But as an example, the use of that higher modality creates an implied analysis which lifts the sophistication of the same sentence. So, in the end, as long as you can make sure that you have these elements and you practice these elements and seek feedback consistently, your paragraphs should improve. It is all about making sure that you have conceptual topic sentences that is based on the rubric, which is based on your thesis, that has connection to the question. Your evidence is whole text, sentence, and word level. You are talking about language deconstruction. It does not feel like a checklist, and you have evaluative language. That is the most important thing when constructing an analytical paragraph.